I never thought my father would choose my wedding day to gut me alive in front of 500 people. But there he was, microphone in hand, his voice booming like thunder over the clink of champagne flutes. "Piper's not the saint you all think she is," he snarled. His eyes, those cold, calculating eyes I'd inherited but never used, locking onto mine as the room fell into a horrified hush. "She's a fraud. A liar who dragged our family's name through the mud and left me to clean up her mess." The words hit like a suppressed round from an M4. Silent but lethal. Because they weren't just lies. They were the half-truths I'd buried deeper than the bodies in my past. I stood there in my lace gown, the one I'd picked out in a bridal shop in Arlington, Virginia, dreaming of a fresh start. My hand frozen in Jake's, my fiancé, who squeezed it like he could anchor me to reality. But reality had always been a battlefield for me. And Dad? He was the general who'd sold me out for a promotion. It started 15 years ago, back when I was just Piper Hayes, the wide-eyed daughter of Colonel Richard Hayes, U.S. Army legend, stationed at Fort Bragg. I was 19, fresh out of high school, enlisting because Dad said it was my duty, my legacy. "Hayes' blood runs blue," he'd say, slapping my back after PT runs that left me puking Gatorade. But duty turned dark fast. Dad wasn't just climbing ranks, he was cutting corners. Black market deals for intel on Afghan ops. Siphoning funds meant for widows and orphans into offshore accounts. I found out by accident, stumbled on his encrypted laptop during a family visit to the base. He caught me. Of course. "You think you can judge me, girl? This is how wars are won." But instead of turning him in, I covered for him. Signed false reports. Took the heat when auditors came sniffing. By 21, I was neck-deep. My service record tainted with irregularities that should have been his. He got his star, full-bird colonel, while I got shipped to a desk job in Langley, analyzing drone footage until my eyes bled. That's when the SEALs found me. Not the shiny Hollywood ones, but the ghosts, DevGru. The real deal. The Tier 1 operators who don't exist on paper. They needed someone who could blend, female, assuming, fluent in Pashto from self-taught tapes, and who knew how to bury secrets. I didn't hesitate. Enlisted under a ghost name, Piper Ghost Harlan. Trained in the swamps of Coronado. Broke my body on Hell Week. Then vanished into the shadows. Black ops in Yemen. Extractions in Somalia. Hits on HVTs that never made headlines. I became the weapon Dad had forged but never wielded. Jake didn't know any of that when we met at a coffee shop in D.C. Him in his Brooks Brothers suit, lobbying for defense contractors. Me pretending to be a mild-mannered analyst for the State Department. He saw the girl who volunteered at animal shelters on weekends. Not the one who'd once ziplined into a Taliban compound with a suppressed scar slung over her shoulder. Our courtship was straight out of a Nora Ephron rom-com. Awkward first dates at Nationals games. Stolen kisses under cherry blossoms. He proposed at the Lincoln Memorial, down on one knee with the reflecting pool shimmering like it approved. But Dad? He hated Jake from the jump. Soft, he'd grunt over Thanksgiving turkey and our McLean split level. "You'll need a real man, Piper, not some pencil pusher." What he really hated was that Jake's firm audited military contracts, ones Dad's side hustles had padded. Paranoia set in. Dad started digging, pulling strings from his retirement perch in Florida. By the rehearsal dinner, he'd pieced it together, my fabricated resume, the gaps in my timeline. He didn't confront me privately. No. Richard Hayes thrived on spectacle. Now, here we were, The band mid-swing on at last, when Dad seized the mic from the best man. The room, packed with Jake's Ivy League crew. My scattered SEAL brothers in ill-fitting tuxes. And Dad's old army cronies froze. Piper enlisted young. Full of fire, he began, his voice dripping false nostalgia. But she cracked. Embezzled funds. Falsified logs. I covered for her. Lost promotions. My reputation in tatters because of my own flesh and blood. Gasps rippled like wind through wheat. Jake's mom, Evelyn, clutched her pearls, my maid of honor. Sarah, a fellow ghost who knew the score, shot me a look that said, "Your call, sister." I felt the old rage uncoil in my gut, the kind that had kept me alive in a Korengal Valley ambush. But this wasn't the field. This was my wedding. My one shot at normal. "Dad," I said, stepping forward, my voice steady as a suppressed breath. "That's not how it went." He laughed, a bark that echoed off the chandeliers. "Oh, it's exactly how it went. Ask anyone." I sacrificed everything for her. Sacrificed? The word twisted like a knife. He'd sacrificed me, fed me to the wolves to save his ass when Brass started asking questions about missing pallet loads of MREs rerouted to Pakistani smugglers. I'd taken the demotion, the psych eval that branded me unfit, all while he toasted at change of command ceremonies. And the SEALs? They recruited me because they knew I was clean, knew Dad's dirt, and needed someone to run interference on his network without blowing covers. The room hung on the edge, forks suspended midair. Jake whispered, "Piper, what the hell?" I could see the doubt creeping in, the fracture lines forming. That's when I made the call. I'd planned for this, hoped against hope I wouldn't need it. But Dad's betrayal ran bone deep. A cancer I'd let metastasize too long. Revenge wasn't a flash of temper, it was surgical, precise, the way I'd learned in the dark. I nodded once to the back of the hall, where shadows pooled under the exit signs. And then, like ghosts materializing from the ether, they rose. 200 strong, tuxes straining over shoulders built from beauty/S hell. Tattoos peeking from cuffs like war paint. Navy SEALs, my brothers in arms, the ones I'd bled with from Raqqa to the Gulf. They didn't cheer or clap, they just stood, a wall of quiet menace, eyes locked on Dad like he was a target package. Colonel Hayes, the lead rose, a grizzled master chief named Reyes, voice cutting the silence like a K-bar. "You want to talk sacrifices? Let's talk." Dad's face drained of color, his mic hand trembling. The room tilted, alliances shifting in real time. Jake's hand slipped from mine, but Sarah gripped my elbow. Fierce. This was the hook, the gut punch, my identity, stripped bare not by shame, but by honor. And as the whispers turned to murmurs, I knew the real war was just beginning. The Master Chief didn't waste breath on pleasantries. Piper Harlan, call sign Ghost, saved my ass in Fallujah. 2014. Pulled me from a burning Humvee while RPGs lit the night. Murmurs swelled. Dad sputtered. "That's impossible." She's one of us," Reyes cut in, his team nodding like a tide. "DevGru. 20 missions. Classified black. And you? You sold out your own daughter to cover your graft." It poured out then. A torrent I'd scripted in my head during sleepless nights in safe houses, the audits Jake's firm had flagged, the whistleblower tips I'd anonymously fed them, the paper trail leading straight to Dad's Cayman accounts. The SEALs weren't just backup, they were witnesses. carrying dossiers in encrypted drives tucked in their pockets. Projections flickered on the venue screens, hacked by a tech whiz from my platoon, bank statements, emails, the works. Dad's empire, crumbling in pixels. But revenge isn't clean. As the cops, tipped off by my preemptive call, swarmed the exits, cuffing a stunned dad amid flashes from stunned guests' phones, I saw the cost. Jake backed away, eyes wide with a mix of awe and accusation. You lied to me, Piper. About everything. My heart cracked, but I held his gaze. I protected you. From this. He shook his head, vanishing into the crowd like smoke. Sarah pulled me aside as the band packed up, the dance floor a graveyard of abandoned heels. You did what you had to. Pipes. But that twist at the end? Your old man's gonna lawyer up. Spin it as dementia or some shit. She was right. Dad's scheming ran deeper than ledgers. He'd flipped the narrative. Paint me as the vengeful harpy, the daughter who orchestrated her own father's downfall at her wedding. Controversial? Hell. The headlines would scream it. Bride's revenge. Seals crash nuptials. Expose family fraud. We slipped out a side door into the D.C. Dusk. The Potomac glittering like it mocked my shattered vows. The seals dispersed into the night. Ghosts again. Slapping my back with grunts of Semper Fi, sister. But as I peeled off the veil, tossing it into the trash like a spent mag, I wondered, had I won? Or just traded one battlefield for another? Dad's betrayal had forged me, but exposing it? That might just break me. The fallout hit like a drone strike at dawn, unseen, then obliterated. By morning, my phone was a war zone. Texts from Jake's family. How could you hide this? Voicemails from reporters. MS. Harlan. Comment on the allegations. And a single, venomous email from Dad's lawyer. Perjury charges pending. Your father's a hero. Yours the villain. I holed up in Sarah's Alexandria row house. A brick fortress with blackout curtains and a stocked liquor cabinet, nursing a bourbon that tasted like regret. Sarah, bless her, brewed coffee strong as jet fuel and laid it out plain. You avenged the past. Pipes, but you nuked your future. Jake's ghosting you. The wedding's canceled. And every network from Fox to MSNBC wants your scalp. She wasn't wrong. Modern America thrives on schadenfreude, viral weddings gone wrong, family feuds turned spectacle. My story? Catnip. SL Bride trended by noon, memes of me in tactical gear photoshopped onto the bridal march. But I wasn't done. Revenge. True revenge. Isn't a mic drop moment, it's a campaign. Attrition warfare. Dad had flipped sides before, once, during a '09 op in Helmand. He'd leaked cords to a contractor buddy for kickbacks, nearly wiping my squad. I'd covered it again, blaming enemy intel, because blood's thicker than valor. Now, I'd flip him, expose every layer until he choked on his own lies. First target his cronies. I hit the phones, calling in favors from the shadows. Reyes patched me through to a JAG officer in Quantico. Voice gravel from too many smokes. Hayes is singing already. Piper. Blaming you for the setups. Saying you framed him, out of spite. Scheming bastard. Always the victim. Twisting narratives like a politician at a presser. I fed the JAG more dirt. Recordings from my burner phone. Timestamps matching his Florida golf outings to wire transfers. By week 2, the indictments dropped. Former Colonel Richard Hayes charged with embezzlement, wire fraud, CNN looped the wedding clip. Dad's rant frozen in infamy. Protests erupted outside the courthouse, vets waving signs, traitor in uniform.
But not all sided with me.
Online forums lit up. Piper's a fame whore. Using seals for clout. Dad's just a scapegoat. Military's corrupt top-down. It split the nation clean. Like a bad divorce, heroes versus villains. But who wore which mask? Jake resurfaced then, unannounced, on Sarah's stoop with a six-pack and hollow eyes. I get it now, he said, popping a top, the fizz cutting the humid air. You were protecting me from all this. We sat on the steps, concrete warm from the sun, watching kids chase fireflies in the park across the street. American as apple pie, if pie came laced with C4. But you should have trusted me.
Pipes.
We could have faced it together.
Trust.
The word burned. I'd trusted Dad once. Handed him my soul on a platter, only for him to pawn it for a corner office. I was scared, I admitted, voice cracking like dry earth. Scared you'd see the killer in me, not the wife. He pulled me close. His cologne, that same sandalwood from our first date, mixing with the river's brackish tang. I see you,
Piper.
all of you. But this revenge, it's eating you alive.
He was half right.
Nights blurred into fever dreams, sandstorms in Kandahar. Dad's face morphing into a target's. My finger on the trigger. I'd wake sweating. Glock under the pillow, habit from the field, not the suburbs. Sarah dragged me to therapy. A VA shrink in a strip mall office, who probed like a demo expert defusing a bomb. You bore his sins, she said, notepad balanced on her knee. That's not loyalty, that's bondage. Bondage. Yeah. The secret I'd carried wasn't just Dad's crimes, it was mine. In 16, during a snatch and grab in Raqqa, I greenlit a drone strike that collateralized a school, 8 kids. Vaporized for 1 HVD. Brass buried it. But I didn't. I'd confessed to Dad in a weak moment. Post-mission. Bourbon slurred over Skype from a FOB. Handle it, he'd said. Not a question. He did, pulled strings, made the report disappear, but not before leaking just enough to jag to force my retirement. I took the fall. Labeled reckless. While he got a quiet medal for oversight. That was the deepest cut. Not the betrayal, but the mirror it held up. I wasn't innocent. I was complicit. A cog in the machine that chewed boys and spat out ghosts. My revenge? Hypocritical theater. Punishing him for sins we'd shared. Still, I pressed on. Infiltrated his golf club, undercover as a caddy. Ball cap low, eavesdropping on his war stories to a cadre of ex-brass. Piper's unstable, he whispered over putts. Voice oily as spilled crude. PTSD. You know. Fabricated the whole thing. Lies layered like camouflage. I slipped a recorder in his locker. Captured it all. Admissions of the Afghan deals. The kid glove treatment from old boys networks. The drop came at a VFW hall in Bethesda. Anonymous USB to a Post reporter. Boom, front page, hero colonel's web of deceit. Dad flipped again. This time to plea bargain, offering up mid-level suppliers to shave years off his sentence. Schemer to the end, cutting deals like a used car salesman. But the twist? His intel led straight to Jake's firm, implicating execs I'd shielded to protect my fiancé. Jake found out over dinner. Thai takeout on his balcony, overlooking the Beltway's crawl. You knew, he said, chopsticks snapping in his fist. About the audits.
The bribes.
And you let me walk into it blind. The hurt in his eyes, raw. American dream shattered, hit harder than any IED. I was building a life with you.
Pipes.
Not a cover story. We argued till the stars wheeled over DC. Voices echoing off glass towers. You're no better than him, he shouted. And damn if it didn't land. The room for doubt cracked wide. Was I the avenger or the abuser? Dragging innocence into my vendetta, Sarah pulled strings for a cooling-off period, shipping me to a cabin in the Shenandoah, where cell service died like bad intel. There, amid rustling oaks and cicada hum, I unraveled. Hiked trails that mirrored my fractures, steep drops, false summits. Wrote letters to the dead, those kids in Raqqa, their faces sketched from memory. Dad's voice haunted. Sacrifices.
Piper.
Wars demand them. But whose war? Mine? Or the Empire's? Word came via sat phone. Dad's trial date set for Alexandria Federal. He'd lawyered up with a silver-tongued Fox News alum, prepping a defense of familial coercion. Me, the manipulative daughter, puppeteering from the shadows. Controversial as hell. Free Colonel Hayes trended. Vets mailing him care packages, painting me as the deep state darling gone rogue. I returned to DC. Leaner, meaner, ready for the climax. Jake met me at the courthouse steps, rain sheeting like tears. I'm testifying, he said, jaw set. For you. But his eyes held the schism, love warring with betrayal. As we entered the marble tomb, flashbulbs popping like muzzle flashes, I gripped his hand. The battle lines blurred. Who was saving whom? And as Dad's gaze met mine across the gallery, smug as a fox in the henhouse, I knew this wasn't justice. It was Judgment Day, and we were all damned. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and stale coffee, the kind that fueled all-nighters in green zones. Dad sat at the defense table, shackled but starched, his suit a defiant flag of normalcy. I took the stand first, sworn in under the eagle's glare, my voice a flat line of facts, dates,
Accounts.
the laptop password I'd cracked at 19. He made me complicit, I said, meeting his eyes, mirrors of my own, now fractured. But I chose silence. Until he chose spectacle. The prosecutor, a bulldog from Justice named Vasquez, paced like a drill instructor. And on your wedding day, Ms. Harlan, I recounted the shaming, the seals rising, a detail that drew gasps from the jury. Housewives and accountants thrust into our opera. Dad's lawyer, Harlan Hawk Thibodeau, cross-examined with southern drawl and shark teeth. Isn't it true, Ms. Harlan,
That you orchestrated this?
theatrical revenge? Used your military connections to harass an ailing veteran. Ailing?
Dad.
At 62. Golfed 18 holes weekly. But Hawk spun it masterful. Medical reports proving early-onset dementia. My aggression as trigger. The room leaned in. Breaths held, classic flip. Dad the doddering patriot. Me the Amazon warrior run amok. Social media outside buzzed. Piper's a bully. Let the old man rest. Sides drawn. The nation picking teams like a Super Bowl tailgate. Jake testified next. His Brooks Brothers armor rumpled from stress. I loved Piper, he said, voice cracking on the wood-paneled echo. But her secrets, they poisoned us. Vasquez pivoted. Did she ever implicate your firm? Jake hesitated, glancing at me, a knife twist. She warned me. anonymously. Saved my career. But Hawk pounced, or sabotaged it, planted doubts to isolate her from support. Jake flushed. The jury shifting. No one clean. Everyone compromised. That's when the twist hit. Surgical and savage. Reyes took the stand. Not as witness, but exhibit, flanked by two ghosts and civvies.
Dossiers in hand.
Exhibit H-47, he intoned, slapping down a redacted file. My RACA op log. Dad's oversight memo attached. Gasps rippled. Hawk objected. Irrelevant. But the judge, a no-nonsense Korean war vet, overruled. Relevance goes to character, counsel, and corruption. It unfolded like a bad op. Dad hadn't just buried the collateral, he'd profited. The HVT? A middleman in his smuggling ring, greased to look like a straight kill. I'd greenlit it blind, but Dad's hand guided the drone's cursor. He sacrificed innocence for his accounts, Reyes growled. Made his daughter the monster. Dad cracked then, lunging across the table. Spit flying. You ungrateful bitch. I built you. Bailiffs wrestled him down. The gallery erupting. Hawk called recess. But the damage seeped. Texts from jurors leaked later. Debates raging in the box. She's a hero. But at what cost? He protected the family's secret, noble. In a twisted way. No victors. Just shades of gray. American ambiguity at its finest. We adjourned to a holding pattern. Me crashing at Sarah's again. Jake orbiting like a damaged sat. Nights. We drive the GW Parkway. Windows down. Classic rock wailing, Springsteen crooning about highways and ghosts. Marry me still? He asked one fog-shrouded dawn, pulling over by the river. I laughed. Bitter as black coffee. After the circus? You'd be crazy. I'm crazy about you.
Pipes.
Flaws and all. The plea came days later. Dad. Copping to fraud but not manslaughter. Hawk's Hail Mary. Trading years for acquittal on the blood price. Vasquez pushed for max. But the judge eyed the split jury. The viral divide. 20 years, he ruled. Gavel like a hammer on anvil. No parole. Dad's glare as they let him out. Pure venom. But cracked at the edges. You destroyed us.
Piper. Us.
The word lingered as I stepped into the crush of mics. Jake's arm my shield. No comment, I muttered. But inside, the schism yawned. Victory tasted like ash. I'd avenged the girl he'd broken, but orphaned the family in the process. Seals texted congrats, emojis of crossed rifles, but Sarah's hug said it. You survived.
Sister.
That's the win. Months blurred. Jake and I eloped in Vegas. Elvis presiding. Rings simple gold bands etched with ghosts together.
No fun for.
Just us against the narrative. I wrote a book, Ghostrin. Irony noted, shadows of blue. Sales spiking on controversy. Dad? Rotting in Leavenworth. Pen Palangi vets who still called him hero. Letters arrived. Smuggled. Proud of you.
Kid.
Even now. Lies. Or absolution. Debatable. The twist that sparked endless barroom brawls? Post-sentencing leak. DNA from Raqqa rubble matched a half-sibling I'd never known. Dad's bastard from a nom fling. Adopted out. Now a JAG prosecutor on Vasquez's team. He'd known. Used it to flip the case's momentum. Blood betrayal. Full circle. Was it karma? Or one more scheme? Forums exploded. Piper deserved it. Family eats its own.
Nah.
She's the real seal. Taking hits for kin. I don't know. Some nights. Jake snores beside me in our Alexandria starter home. I stare at the ceiling.
Potomac moonlit through blinds.
Revenge closed the loop, but left scars like shrapnel, tender, infected. Happy ending? If happiness is Jake's hand in mine. Sarah's barbecues with the team. A life stitched from tatters. Or tragic. If you count the ghosts, dads. The kids.
My own.
America's like that, triumph and tragedy in the same breath. Cheering for the underdog till the underdog bites back. I bite still, but softer now. The war's over. Or is it? In the quiet, I hear Dad's voice, sacrifices.
Piper. Yeah.
And I'm done paying his tab.